Okay, I'm ready to begin Tigger, and he's the easiest one to do. So I have him brought in here already into my program. And the first thing I wanted you to notice was his tail right here. Look at that, that's missing. He came in just like that. So we obviously have to fix that to be able to get him to work. Also, there's some extra junk over here that we don't want. So let me scroll back out. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace him. So the first thing I do then is I come over here to the trace area over here on the right hand side, and I'm going to open the trace panel. I'm going to say select the trace area, and I'm just going to trace around him just like that. And look at, he looks like he comes in pretty good, right? Except for I want to scroll in a little bit using this little bug type tool. That's what it looks like to me anyway. And I click on that and I can zoom in on him, just clicking on his face. And I want to zoom in maybe a little bit more with this tool. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see this. Now you'll see right here and here, we've got some issues going on with him. He's not a very good trace the way he is right now because there are openings there. Too many openings that we'd need to mess with nodes, that's for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the threshold for him. So come over here and look at the right hand side of my screen and you see the word threshold. I'm going to I can either use this scroll bar right here, or I can use the up and down arrow. And I'm going to use the up and down arrow, and I'm going to go up a little bit. And I'd like you to look over here and see what happens to these lines as I go up with the threshold amount. Do you see how they're getting closer together and closing? Okay, the first one is closed right here, but we want this one to close as well. So I'm going to use the up arrow and keep going until that closes. All right, that's closed and it looks great. So I'm just going to scroll down here and see if anything else looks like it's crazy. Okay, that doesn't look real great right there. So I'm going to continue to up my threshold just a little bit more so I can make sure that's closed. And looking carefully. Now we know we have a problem over here where his tail is. Right there, because it's not closed. So we're going to fix that though. I'm going to go back up here and fit it to the window again. And I'm just going to say trace. And I can move this part off. And here's this guy and he's ready to go. So the first thing that I always do is I just click on the very top of him and I change the color to a color that's easy to see. And you may be thinking, well, why don't you make it black? Because that is what you're going to make it eventually anyway. Well, let me show you why I don't do that. If I come up here to the color swatch and I change it to black, okay, that looks great, right? But remember now, the next step we have to do is we have to come up here to Object, click on that and say Release Compound Path. And watch what happens when I do that. Turns the whole thing to black, which may be okay because we can move this out of the way. But these pieces are still black and I don't like to work with them like that. So I'm going to hit the Control key, Control and Z on my keyboard, and that is just a quick way to undo. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and change this color to a lighter blue like that. Okay. And now the next thing that I need to do is I'm going to again come up here to Object and Release Compound Path. With him selected, Object, Release Compound Path. And this time you can see all the little boxes that it made, and that's going to allow us to color it. So I'm just going to move him out of there because I don't need this piece right now. And I'm going to get rid of some of these extra pieces that I don't want. So see this piece right here? I don't need it. I'm going to click on that and hit delete on my keyboard. The same thing for that little piece right there. And I'm going to scroll in with a bug because I think there's some more things. I don't need these little pieces right here. They're not going to make or break my picture. So I'm going to click on it and delete, and click on this little tiny one and delete. And let's see if there's any more. I think there was one up here. Scroll in a little further. Yep, there's one there. Delete, here, delete, and here, delete. And I did notice something odd down here on his foot that I want to check out. I'm going to leave that piece for now, I guess. Here it is. So there's this extra little piece right here, and I really don't think I need that, so I'm going to delete it as well. All right, so let's go back up here to this and fit to window. All right, so he's perfect. So now I'm just going to begin coloring him. And I'm going to color him the best I can from my memory. I did have the colored version of him up here in my original one, but I forgot to put it here. So we'll just go from memory. I know that the very first thing I do easily is his nose, because I know that's pink. So I'm going to come up here to the color swatch after I've selected his nose. Notice there's a bounding box around his nose. I'm going to change the color to pink, just like that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I know his chin, and I'm going to hold down my shift key because I know his chin and his belly and the inner parts of his ear. So I'm selecting all these pieces are like a light tan color. So I'll just change him to that for now. I'm going to scroll and see how he's looking. Looking pretty good. All right, let's see what else do we need to do. All right, I know the top of his head is also the same color. Now, do you notice what happened when I clicked on that? Look at all those nodes. Can you see them? That's a crazy bunch of nodes, right? I don't need the nodes selected right now because with them selected, I can't even go up here and change the color of that section. So I want this area to be selected. All I have to do is hit the V key, the letter V as in Victor, hit that key on my keyboard, and that changes it so I have the regular selection tool, and it made a bounding box around that section. So now I can come up here and I can change it. And I've forgotten which color I used, so I'll come over here to the eyedropper, click on the eyedropper, and then any color I scroll over, notice what's happening in this little box down here. It changes the little box to that color because that's the color that the eyedropper is sucking up. I'm going to click on this because that's the color I want. And once again, I'm going to come up here to fit to window so I can see what I have I'm working on. Okay, that looks pretty good. What I think I'll do now is I'll come over here and get this part, and I will change its color to black. And I'm going to move that over here to see how it's looking. Okay, that's looking really, really good, you guys. I'm liking it. But before I do that, let's go ahead and change the blue colors of him because I know I want all of the blue to be orange. So I can actually select by color and by fill, and I can come over here. Let me show you how I did that again. I came up here to edit, select by color, and over here this panel opens up, and it opens up where it says by line. I'm going to change it by fill, and that's going to allow me to choose all of those blue pieces at one time. Watch. Okay, every single blue piece has been chosen, and now all I need to do is come up here to the color area, click on that, and change it to orange, just like that. Perfect, right? Now let's bring the black thing back in here, and look how good he is looking. But we've got to fix this part here on his tail. So let me move this black part back out. I'm going to grab all of this, and I'm going to right click on it and say group. I'm going to move that out of the way for now and work on this black piece because I need to fix this tail area right here. So I'm going to scroll into it, and there's some easy ways to do this and some more difficult ways to do it. I'm going to show you the easy way to do it, one of the easy ways. So the first thing you do is just double click on it, and that brings up the node editor. See this? And then point editing or node editing panel opens up. And look at all these nodes on here. Now, I know Stephanie had talked about having too many nodes on hers originally, and so we discovered that if you just hit the simplify button, that simplifies it and gets rid of a lot of nodes, right? Let me undo that once. Control Z, undo. So look at all these nodes, look at all these points. And now when I hit simplify, watch what happens. Very few nodes now. And we could actually just pull these nodes like this if we wanted to and reshape them like this. And kind of reshape it as best we can. And I actually could just click on this node and say delete point, and that will just bring these pieces together easily. And this could pretty much be done just like this. Or if I wanted to, I could have deleted or broke the nodes apart and then regroup or reattach them. But this worked pretty easy for this part. Notice these two little blue handles here. They allow me to move the curve of this thing so I can make it look better. Like that. Okay, let's zoom in and look at this part right here. I'm not crazy about how this looks, so I'm going to double click here. And let's see. I think what I'll do is I will break the point right here, or break the node, break the path. And so what that's going to do, it's going to, when I point on this, it's going to allow me to break this apart and then break this part apart. And then what I can do is reselect these and bring these together like that. And they attach nicely like that. And there's a way that you can take these nodes and you can drag them around to make them, make them hump the way you want them to. And again, while I'm dragging that, I get these little handles here that allow me to adjust things a little bit more as well. See how they work? All right, I'm happy with that pretty well. It's good enough. Actually, what I think I'll do is I'll put another node right here. Can drop a node right there by clicking. Then I can just drag that out a little bit. And I think I will just click on this node actually and delete it. Right click and delete point. And that kind of makes it a little smoother. All right, and I could come up here if I wanted to. And this node right here, I could right click on this one and say delete point. And that allows it to get smoother too. So you could keep working on this as long as you wanted to. So he's looking a lot better. I'd probably smooth his tail out a little bit more here, but that's okay for now. So I'll bring this guy back over here. And actually he's looking pretty terrific, except something's missing right here. And I'm going to show you two ways to fix that. So let me zoom in. The first way, and it has to do with what we were learning last week, come over here to the line tools, and I'm going to get the draw a polygon tool. Okay, click on that, and I can just come over here and start clicking, and every time I click, I'm leaving a little node. And I can just click right like that. And when I bring these two nodes back together, they're going to kind of snap together like a magnet, and just like that. Whoops. And it changes the color to what it was. Now suppose I don't want it to be this color, obviously. So I can click on it. Oh, I got the nodes showing up again. So how do I get rid of those nodes? I hit the V on my keyboard and it automatically goes back to my selection tool, and I can change that color to orange. Okay, so that was one way to change it. If I don't want to change it like that, what I can do is just grab one of these pieces. Oh, I can't grab one right now. Do you know why? Remember that I had grouped it? So I need to grab all this and say ungroup. And now I can grab one of these pieces, hold down the Alt key on my keyboard, and when that's selected, just drag this apart. And I've made a duplicate just like that. So now I can resize this if I want to a little bit and bring it up in here. and just kind of twirl it. Whoopsie, I didn't mean to move that one. Grab this one and using that little green arrow, twirl it around so it fits. And just like that, that one's done. So I'm going to delete this one because I like that one better. And I might make it just a smidgen bigger and rotate it a smidgen more. All right, so he's pretty much done except for one thing that you'll see up here. And this is something that we learned about last week as well. You remember, we don't want this mouth to be orange, we want it to be black. But if we're cutting vinyl out or cardstock, we don't want to have to cut out a little tiny piece like that and mess with it. So all you have to do is click on it to select it, hold down your Shift key, and select the object that's right beside it. So two objects are selected. And then come over here, let me get rid of the point editing. Come over here to the Modify panel. And if you're never sure where these panels are, because you haven't memorized these yet because you haven't practiced that much yet, you can come up here to the Panels area, right up here, and scroll down here and look for the Modify panel. But honestly, once you practice enough, it's a lot easier just to come over here and grab the Modify panel and click on it to open it. And once it's opened, well, I don't have these selected anymore because I was messing around so much. So I need to select his mouth again, hold down my Shift key, select his chin, and then I'm going to say subtract. And that's going to subtract that mouth part right out of the tan. So now what do we have? We have this tan part, but look, that mouth has been cut right out of there and it shows the black underneath. And that's perfect, just what we want. So we want to do the same thing with his eyeballs up here. So I'm going to click an eyeball, hold down my Shift key, click an eyeball, and while they're still selected, holding down my Shift key, select the thing that's right beside them, and then say subtract. There they are. That subtracted those two little holes right out. Perfect. All right, the other thing that I did do, well, I'll leave these like this. All right, so he's pretty much done. Now, all we would need to do now, if we wanted to take him over to Cricut, we would want to do this. We would want to grab, well, watch this. If we grab these pieces, when we take them over to Cricut, our machine's going to try to put these together on the mat in such a way that it conserves our vinyl or cardstock. But suppose we are using vinyl or HTV and we want everything to stay just as it is because it makes it so much easier to layer. So let me hit Control Z to put these back. And here's all we have to do. We come up here to Edit, Select by Color. And this panel again comes up. Oftentimes it comes up where it says Select by Line Color. We don't want that. We want to select by Fill. So I'm going to start with the orange. So that selected all of the orange. And once that's all selected, let me move this panel over here because I like to have two panels open when I do this part. So I'm going to come way over here and I'm going to open the Modify panel again. Here it is. And when it's open and I have my Select by Color and I've selected the orange, all I have to do is come over here to Make, and that actually means Make Compound Path. And I'm going to click on Make. And what that has done was it has connected all of those together just like that. So when we take this over to Cricut, they'll be selected together and they will cut just like that on the vinyl. Now the pink, I think I had originally made his little ears pink, so let me make his ears pink. The same color of pink, so I'm going to grab the eyedropper so I can make sure they're the same. There we go. And so now the pink, I'll go to Select by Color. And again, I'll just come right over here and say Make. And that makes a compound path. Let's see, what else do we have? We have the tan Right now, if I move this piece, it moves separately. They don't stay in order the way I'd want them to. So if I go to the tan and select those by color and come over here and click on Make or Make Compound Path, see, it makes the shapes into one shape, as you can see what it says right there. Okay, make it, and there they are. So that's perfect. So then all we would have to do now, and the black we don't need to make a solid shape because it already is. So we would just take this and send it to Cricut Design Space, or we would send it to our Cameo machine this way. And someone had asked at one point if I could show how to do that. And if you look at the dollar level class where we made the Father's Day card, and I just uploaded the video today, if you look at that, I talk in there about how you send it to your silhouette machine. So let's continue on. So he's done. Let's go to Mickey and Minnie. Now, Mickey and Minnie are going to be a lot easier. And I promise you, I want to tell you something. You're not going to have to edit nodes for everything that you try to change into an SVG. I promise. I'm going to show you at the end how to get a good image that, in general, you will have very minimal editing to do. So let me do Mickey and Minnie. They're very cute, aren't they? First thing we do is come over to the Trace panel, click on it, select the trace area, and there we go. Okay, they look like they've come in pretty well. Let's get our little bug magnifier and come down here and double check just to make sure. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Sometimes Minnie's bow comes in and it might be totally yellow. And if that ever happens to you, what you need to do is just come over here to the threshold area and mess with that. Probably lower the threshold area because you want to be able to see the middle part of the bow and these parts as well. So the trace is good. Let's just say trace. And let's fit this to my screen again, or my window. And let's move these out of the way. And here we go. Here they are. So once again, the first thing I do is come up to the top, get that box, and I come over here and I change the color to a color that is a light color. One of these ones in the lower two rows is what I usually use. So I'll just change it to this green. And that looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Object, click on that, and say Release Compound Path. Click. Okay, something screwy has happened here. Her bow has not gotten colored in. There's no box there, so I'm not going to be able to color her bow individually, nor will I be able to color in her foot. Now, it's easy to see why we can't do her foot. Look at this big gap down here. It's a big gap that needs to be closed. And there must be a gap here in her bow as well. So let's scroll in and check out her bow first. All right. I'm just going to click off. I can see exactly where the problem is right here, right? And this problem wasn't in, whoopsie, in the original file. I sabotaged this one so we'd have more to work with, so we could practice some more. So there's an easy way to fix this, but we are working on nodes today. So we're going to use nodes to fix this. So I'm going to double click on this to see its nodes. So the node editor is right here. And I could simplify it, I guess, to get rid of even more nodes by hitting this button over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this node right here, click on it. Once you click on it, see how it turns into like a white box? Let's see if I scroll in. Yeah, you see that white box? Let me click off, double click, and if I click on this node, the one I'm going to edit is a white box. I'm going to right click on that node and say Break Path. Now you can't really see that the path is broken, but if I grab just that red dot right there, I don't want to grab it when my hand or my pointer, my mouse still looks like a hand, or even if it looks like an arrow. I want to wait until it turns where there's a little line going through a black box, and I can stretch that apart just like that. Okay, so I have two lines here. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come back again to the fit to window, and then just come in a little bit. Let's see if I can do this just a bit. So what I want to have happen is I want this to be a solid line all the way around her bow to here. So when I break this path right here, I need to make this line that goes around the rest of the bow meet this line. And this part, the outside part, meet this part. So let me show you. I'm going to move this apart again a little bit further, and I'm going to move this a little bit further just to, whoops, not that, this. All right, so now I'm going to break this path right here. Right click on it, click on it. Notice that makes it a white box with a black outline. That means that's the one I'm working on. I can right click on that one now and say break path. And now again, I don't want to try to grab that while this is still an arrow, while my mouse is an arrow, or even when it's a finger. I need to get right over top of it till it turns into that little icon right there. There's an arrow, and then there's a line through a box, a black box. And that's when I know I can break this apart. And look at this. This automatically jumps just like a magnet to that other one. Now it would jump to any one, but I don't want it to jump to this one. I want it to jump to this one because I wanted this path to be solid. And you remember, I want this path, the inner part of her ear, to be solid. So I'll take this, whoopsie, let me undo that. I moved the wrong thing. I want to make sure I get that little arrow and the black box, and then I can bring these two pieces and bring them together just like that. So that's perfect. Now, you would think that I would be able to color this, but I cannot. Even if I hit Control V or the V on my keyboard, it doesn't let me go from the node editing to regular selection tool. So what I have to do is I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to come up here to Object, Release Compound Path. Okay, that released this all as a compound path, and now I can actually color this. Sometimes we had to send something to the back to color it, but I'm able to color it this time just like that. So I'm going to color the rest of her bow and this part of her bow. And this part of the bow. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit it to the screen again so I can see how it's looking. And it's looking really good. Let's come down here now and let's work on her foot. So again, get the bug and scroll in. And let's think about this for a second. Again, this is the path we want to close here that is her foot, right? So when we have two pieces, well, let me show you. Okay, this, remember, I can't get it when it's an arrow. I have to wait until it turns into that little figure. I can right click on it and say break path. And now again, I can only grab it. And Vicky, maybe this is where you're having trouble. Make sure you don't grab it when it looks like an arrow or a finger. Wait till it turns to this icon. Then you can click on it and grab it apart. Now here's the thing you need to be careful of, remember. This part of the foot, look where my where my hand is going, all the way around here. We want this piece to close right here so we can color the inside of her foot. So when we click on this one, double click, and we come up here till we get that tool, and we want this node right here, and we right click on it, and we say break path. And again, I don't try to grab it yet. Not yet, not yet, not yet. There, I can grab it now. I can bring this piece apart. And, oops, let me grab this. I can grab that. Now, remember, we need to make sure, even though these two places will go together, we don't want those two to be together, because look, if you follow this path, this goes out here and around the outer edge. So what that would do then is if I colored this outside part black, all of this would get colored black. So let me Control Z. So what I want to do is I want this node to connect to that one. Okay, and that might look a little bit weird right now, but we want this inner part of her foot to connect so we can color her foot a color. Okay, so there we go. And again, I can't yet color this. No matter what I try to do, I can't select it by using the selection arrow up here or changing this to the V. It won't work. So what I have to do is I have to come up here to Object and simply release Compound Path. And there it is. It's been released. And this is the problem we had earlier, where all you need to do now is to right click on this big old piece right here and say send to the back, because you know what? Underneath this big old piece is that piece that we just created. So let's send this big piece, send it to the back, and there's the piece we want. And we can now select it and we can color it. And I'm going to make her outfit, all of her little clothes, purple. So I'm going to do this fit to window again and just scroll out, and now I'm able to change all of her clothes. Hold down my shift key as I grab them, and I'm going to change them to purple. There we go. Okay, so now what I can do if I want to is I can change this outer part to black so we can see how it's working. So let's come up here and change it to black. And that looks really great, right? So now we could mess with these nodes down here a little bit so we could soften the look of that and not have such a jerky line. So let's just look at that for a second and go in. And when I click on this, I can actually right click on this node if I want to, and I can just delete this point or this node, and that made it rounder just like that. And maybe let's see what happens if we delete this node. Okay, that wasn't good, right? So let's undo that. Control Z. And I'm pretty happy with this. I could putz with this a little bit more if I wanted to, and I could actually add a node right there by clicking and then kind of bringing it out like that if I want. That looks pretty good. All right, so let's come up here again, fit to window. And now I'm just going to start coloring in their flesh tone. So I'm going to grab that, hold down my shift key and grab his face, and I'll just come up here and change them both to this creamy color. And if I scroll in with this, it looks like I've got some more to color in right here. Again, when I click there, I got the nose, but I can just hold the V on my keyboard and get that. And right now, I'm not sure what these things should be. So I'm going to color their I'll just color that the flesh color. So I'm not sure what I use, so I'm going to use the eyedropper and do that. All right, so maybe this is also flesh color right here. I'm going to change that. And notice the last thing that I use that I picked up with the eyedropper always stays right up here conveniently, so I can use that. All right, next thing, maybe, I don't remember, do they have white hands? I think they have like white gloves. I'm going to make them have white. So I hold down my shift key and grab all of these little parts that I know are probably parts of the fingers. I'm going to change those all to white, like that. And I'm going to change his outfit to, maybe I'll make his be red. Change his to red. Okay, and this is probably a little piece of it also. Again, I got the node, so I'm going to hold or get my V, and I'll change that to red. All right, looks like I need to change their little tongues to a pink. And I will make her have some eye shadow. I think I'll make her have some eyeshadow that's sort of the color of her outfit. There we go. Okay, we have an issue with their eyeballs now. I need to change these to white. So I'm going to click on that one, hold down my shift, get that one, and get this one. And I'll change those to white. Okay, notice I'm not going to be able to do this white in here. Why is that? Well, let's try. I'll click this and see if I can change it to white. And it changes everything to white, so I'll undo that. Okay, you can see why this changed to white. I mean, it didn't work, right? So we need to come up here and get the bug, scroll in again. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to close this shape right here. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to double click on it to get the nodes. And if I click on one of these nodes, and that's the one I'm going to work on, and I say break path, watch what's going to happen. Oh my gosh, it gets really hard to see, right? So I'm going to undo that for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily change this color right here of this from black to gray. Okay, and then I'll be able to see more easily what I'm doing. So while that's gray, now I'm going to double click on this to get my nodes, and I'm going to right click on this one and say break path. So now I can still see easily what I'm doing. And again, I won't grab that node while it's like this. I'll wait until I have the proper look. And notice that I first started going this way. That's not the way I want to go with this one. I want to go that way. Because again, if we look, what are we trying to close? We're trying to close, let's see if we can see, this part of the eyeball that's going to be white together, right? So I don't want this piece to come down here and close with this. I want it to close with a node right over here maybe, or even here. So I'm going to click on this one to get it highlighted. Notice it's white now. Once my little mouse turns into this little square with an arrow and a line through it, I can right click and say break path. And now I want to grab this, and what do I want to attach this one to? Do I want to attach it here, number 1, or number 2? Look what path we're trying to close. Do I want to bring this down here and close it here or here? Okay, the place I want to close it is right here. So I'm going to drag this down and bring it over. Whoa, don't close there. There. Okay. And then this piece right here, I'm going to move it up a little bit and close it there. So now what I can do is I can go back and change this back to, if I get to my selection tool, I can change this now probably, let's scroll out a little bit. Let's select off of everything by just clicking over here. And again, I want to select just this eyeball here, but it's not letting me. Okay, so what I need to do now is I have to do this. I have to come up here to Object, Release Compound Path, and then that releases the compound path so that I am now able to color this, the color that I want, and the color that I want that to be is white. Oh, look what happened. Let's undo this. Let's scroll out a little bit and see why that happened. The reason why that happened was because I have two things selected, and all I want is the inner eyeball. So now we've got it right, and now I can change that to white. All right. So you remember how I made all of this gray stuff gray? I'm going to change it back to black. I clicked on it to highlight it, and it changed up here in the swatch, so I'm going to change it back to black. Excuse me. And look and see what we have going on. So I'm going to make that go there. Okay, this is looking really great, you guys. There's a few things yet we have to do, and I'll start down here at his feet. So I'm going to scroll in using the bug. And remember from last week, we've learned to do this, and it's good to practice again and again and again. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this color right here, hold down our shift key and grab the thing that's right beside it, the red, and we're going to come over here to the modify panel, click on that, and we're going to say subtract. And what that did was it just cut that strip right out of that red so that we can see the black underneath. Then we can do the same thing with this one. Click on this green, hold down the shift key, click the red, and click subtract. Perfect. All right, now we have a little bit of an issue with her buttons, I see. So I think what I want to do is I guess I want to change them to a different color. Let's make them a lighter purple. And I'll make this one a lighter purple as well. Then I'm going to make this part the green. Notice I can tell that's selected there. And I'm going to hold down my shift key and get the purple. And then I'm going to say subtract. Perfect. Look at that. Isn't this cool? This is so much fun, you guys. Really, truly. And they're not all as hard as what some of them are. So there's one other thing we can do here. We can change this color to the pink in the bow. So I'll come up here to the swatch. If I'm not sure what color I used, I'll get the eyedropper. And there. I see there's a little issue in her eyeball right here, right? Look at that. I don't want that to be green. I'm going to select it. Come up here. And I'm not sure what color of purple I used for her eyeshadow. So again, I'll get the eyedropper and do that. And it's perfect. Now the little whites of her eyes, or these little things, we can change these to a different color also. I'll hold one, hold down my shift key, get the other, and maybe I want to make this a pretty glittery color or something. But right now I'll just make it like a little bit of a grayish white. All right, let's scroll back out one last time and see how this looks. Okay, whoopsie, sorry. I think they look super cute. And so now the only thing yet that we have to do is to select these and save them by color. So, because right now if we took this into Cricut Design Space, they would be pieces like this. And again, our Cricut machine would try to maneuver them so they would be easily cut, saving vinyl. So I didn't do this during class originally, but I'll just show you now. If you go to send it and you are using a Cameo, what you will do is notice what it's going to do right now. It's showing. It's going to just cut the outside edge of something. That's not what you want. You want it to cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this, and I want it to cut all of those little pieces. So notice it put cut lines, those are the red lines, around every one of the pieces. Now you're thinking, well, like, how do I do this on my Cameo? What you do now is you go to this Fill tab. Okay? I would uncheck all of these. And just hit this button. It unchecks everything. All right, let's say I want to cut out the black part of them first. And let's imagine that I want to cut that part out of flock. I would click on this, and then I would do is come over here to this drop-down menu, and I would change this to say heat transfer flocked. And that would cut that out of flock material. Let's say I have room on the same mat to cut something else. And I'm going to cut the blue part. And let's just say I'm going to cut hers out of glitter vinyl. I can change this to vinyl or HTV glitter. Maybe I want to do printable. It's something. Oh, let's do glitter. There it is. Heat transfer glitter. Okay, so what this means then is I would be able to cut the black part out, and this is if they were small things. So let me show you. I could cut the black part out on the mat, and then I could also grab the blue. I should have grouped those together. But I could also cut the blue part out or the purple part out on the same mat. And what would happen would be my machine would set its, if I have the automatic blade in there, it would set its blade to cut this using heat transfer, or I mean the flock, and then it would pause and the automatic blade would make some clicking noises and it would get ready and it would know to cut the next part out using the glitter settings. Okay, so that's just in a nutshell how that works. We'll go back to design. For design space, of course, all we do is send it over there. I might as well do it this one time. So we go to File, we'd have to Save As, Save to hard drive, and you would have to save this as an SVG. So it'd be Mickey and Minnie like that. And I would change this from a silhouette to an SVG file and say OK and open up design space, and I would go to upload an image, browse, and I would go into my Patreon folder, my number 4 trace continued. There's Mickey and Minnie. There they are. I would save them. I'd insert them. And they would come in just like this. I would probably want to... Okay, I want to show you something. Something we didn't do this time, but we did do for Tigger. For this to work easily in design space, there was one more step we should have taken. Because watch, when I ungroup this, or even if I just go to make it, watch what's going to happen. Let's go down to maybe, where's the red? Okay, there's the bow. Look at those little pieces, how they're going to cut out. Here are her clothes. Look how they're going to cut out. Okay, that's not at all what we wanted. Here's Mickey's pajamas. No. So the thing that you do before you bring it over into Cricut Design Space is you come up here to, let me grab my little screen up here. We come up here to Edit, Select by Color. I'm going to change this to by Fill, and I'm going to move this over because remember now I do like to have 2 panels open for this. So I'm going to get the Modify panel over here, open it, bring it over here so it's close. So I'm going to start. So I really don't think I should have any of this green in there. I'm not sure of the gray. I'm going to start with the purple, which is her outfit, right? I'm going to select that by color. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say Make Compound Path. Now that stays right like that. I'm going to do the same thing with this pinky color for her bow. I'm going to make a compound path. And it's going to stay together perfectly just like that. I'll do the same thing with Mickey's outfit. Whoops, I'm going to select it here. Make a compound path. There it is as one piece. And now I'll quickly go over to Cricut Design Space again and show you the difference. So I'm going to save as, save to hard drive. And I'll do Mickey and Minnie again, but I'll name this one number 2. Or group by color. Okay. And I'm going to save it as an SVG file. Okay. So let's open up Cricut Design Space one more time. And let's cancel this so we know what this one looked like. Look at all these cut pieces over here that are individual. Okay. And I'm going to go to Upload, Upload an Image, Browse, Mickey and Minnie by group by color. Okay, I didn't put it back together. That's why it looks like that, but that's okay. Save. I should have put them back together there, but it's okay. Insert image. Okay, so here this is. So let me grab all of this and hide it. And let's just go and see what this will look like if we were to make it. Make it. And now let's check out, first of all, let's go down here. See her bow, it all stays together perfectly. This, parts of her buttons, more parts of her buttons. Okay, there's her outfit. You can see this is her little butt part and her legs or feet. Let's find Mickey and see how his stayed together. See, perfectly, right? So that's what you need to remember to do if you want it to cut like this, if you're doing vinyl and you want it to stay in the proper shape. Okay, so that pretty much concludes it. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope you enjoyed today's class, and I'll see you again next week.